Brundage, who is the Assistant Director of Apartment Living and Operations, and I hope I got that right. Jenny was gracious enough to step in for us at the last minute today, and we look forward to hearing from them. We will turn the time over to you, Brad and Jenny.
All right, thank you very much, Ben. We're glad to have this opportunity to present today, and we're sorry for those of you that maybe were looking for Jed Cummins to be here. He is unfortunately not going to be able to join us, so Jenny was kind enough to step in, let's see, about an hour and a half ago. So she is a trooper to be stepping in and helping us here. So with that, we're going to jump right in. We've got quite a bit of things that we'd like to try and get through today. So first things here, we want to talk a little bit about who we are, a little bit of our backgrounds, and some of our thoughts on tackling facility issues, thinking back to our past as well and when we first started in this field. Secondly, we're going to talk a little bit about UNC and exactly who we are and some of the obstacles and fortunate things that we have on our campus. We're also going to talk March Madness because, by golly, it's almost basketball time here, and we're going to talk about this from the thought of how fast-paced housing can be and some of the different challenges, and we're going to have a little fun with the basketball scenarios at the same time. We're also going to be talking about best practices when we're talking about working with our internal folks, our external contractors, in any sort of setting. It may be a vendor, it might be somebody in a construction or renovation type of project as well. We're also going to be talking about building your competence and really how can you talk to people effectively in those roles, because as a person who has the opportunity to sit at the table with facilities or with a contractor in a renovation project, a vendor, there are a few things that are really helpful and critical in making sure that you're communicating effectively. And lastly, we're going to be talking about some tips in really working alongside our facility personnel. And we want to make sure that we keep those allies and build strong alliances. So with that, we're going to start with an introduction here by Jenny.
Hi everybody, my name is Jenni Brundage. As Ben said, I'm the Assistant Director for Apartment Life and Operations here at UNC. This is my start of my second year. I just came most recently from the University of Wyoming, serving in a similar capacity up there. My degrees are from Carthage College, just a BA in Liberal Arts Education. My Master's in Student Affairs is from Michigan State. Collectively, I've been in the field about 9 years. Doing work in housing, primarily on the residential education side of the house, but certainly with taking on some apartment life responsibilities for the last several years, have really delved into what it means to be looking at housing services and contracting and facilities issues in general. So very happy to be here. This is my 5th campus, if you include some time I spent on semester at sea, which is a totally different kind of campus experience, and I'm happy to join you today.
And I've already introduced myself a little bit here, but a little bit of my background here. I started here at UNC, collected a couple of degrees, left, went to 2 other institutions, had an opportunity to come back here in January of 2000, and have enjoyed my time immensely here in a variety of roles, culminating with my role right now as the Director of Housing Services. So my 3 campuses, all very different, all had a little bit of a different flavor, and all of them taught me different things. And in all of them, I honestly went into facilities saying I had no idea that I needed to know some of these things. So both of us came up in the residential life or residential education side of the house, which has been enormously beneficial in trying to help bridge a gap with people that don't necessarily understand what it is that we do and why we do it. So the learning curve has gone both directions as we've had an opportunity to teach and learn. So with that, we'll keep trucking here.
So we manage, out of our housing and residential education department, we manage 17 residence halls that range in a variety of styles and fashions. We have 13 apartment buildings, which are in 2 very different complexes that run in different leasing structures as well. We manage 8 parking improvement properties. You might wonder what that means. So did I when I got here, and it means that we actually split half of the revenue with our parking services. Currently, they're used for guest housing, some of our visiting faculty or temporary faculty housing, a variety of those kinds of things within the community that can at any point be turned into a different kind of project. We have 5 student houses, so similar to the houses that we have for the parking improvement properties, we actually manage 5 of these and allow our students to live there, again ranging in size from 1 to about 12. We have 3 sorority houses that we manage, and we have 1 retreat center up in Estes Park, which is about an hour from us up in the mountains. And we take a lot of our staff and students there, as well as rent that property out to both community, campus, and local partners.
So what we do, with our focus on the housing services side, obviously we've got a huge focus on the custodial housekeeping piece here, day-to-day operational cleaning. We do a lot of our own appliance maintenance and repair. We have a utility crew that handles that. We handle all of the primary furnishings for every student room, lobby, lounge, etc. And that is inclusive of the actual procurement pieces, working through those details. We do have a general labor role, and this is a role that we wanted to call out because it's one that we've kind of put in a flex position that really is a position to do all and anything that we need. So they will make that run up to the mountain campus that we have up in Estes Park. They'll run to the stores for us. They work on appliances. They move things for us. They help get pieces for programs if people need chairs and tables and easels and such. They help in that capacity as well. We handle the snow removal on our campus out to a certain distance when we have our grounds folks that will come in and take it over from that point. We do escorting of certain contractors. If people are going to be in students' rooms, we do the escorting of that through our operation. Obviously, the coordination of all hall opening, closing, and so forth, we have a huge role in that to try and make sure things go as smoothly as possible. A lot of that is closely coordinated with all of our partners on the residential education side. And then lastly here, renovation and construction. That's a pretty big piece that obviously has a massive impact on our students and our guests and staff, and we need to make sure that we're closely communicating and coordinating all those details too, which gets into conference services as well, as we typically do the bulk of our renovation and construction during the summer, compressed time schedules, and trying to work through those very quickly.
You know, we got a little bit ahead of ourselves. If we can also know who you all are that we're chatting with, that would be great. Ben's going to send you 2 polling questions. Want to know who's in the room as far as what level you are, and then also what side of the house do you typically work for?
Okay, so some of the things that we do coordinate with others on, and I'm not going to go through these one by one here, but we work very directly with all the departments that you have on the screen here. Jets Laundry is actually an external contractor. That's one of our campus partners that we have for all of our laundry services, which we've elected to do as a free service within our residence halls. Waste Management is a contract that we have with actually Waste Management, our trash service. Campus Televideo is our cable provider here, and Jenny is really pleased with our cable service here. We're still working out the kinks on that one. And then let's see, the rest of these are just outside vendors. So these are some of the entities that we work with. We also have rooftop leases. So, and that's where you'll see the Sprint here, the T-Mobile. The rooftop leases are on our 17-story structure, and it's a piece where we have to coordinate access up there. They will oftentimes be doing modifications, upgrades, some construction as well. Okay, so go ahead.
We're just looking to see who's in the room as you've answered these questions. So we can, well, it looks like we have about a mix of everybody here. Pretty good split between mid-level and senior level. Thanks everybody for being here. So Just wanted to give you kind of an overview of our housing and residential education mission. One thing I'm sure that you all have spoken quite a bit about is the intentionality behind how we are writing missions as well as living those missions. And so you can see here we have some things that are underlined and highlighted, specifically within the housing component of our department. We want to create environments where students are responsible members of their community, living in exceptional community facilities, and we really value that student learning and the facilities excellence. And where this really shows up for us is that we instill in all of our staff members, from our student staff on the res ed side all the way through our custodial leads and supervisors on the housing services side, this idea of creating pride in where we are, what we're doing, and why we're doing it. We really look at making sure that our staff in general understand their role in retaining and recruiting students. And so as our tours are coming through, our facilities really need to be an exceptional state so that our students know that we actually care. We care where they're living. I actually had a really nice chat just a few days ago with one of our custodial supervisors who started 25 years ago as a level 1 custodial staff member, was working nights and did it really just because he needed a job. And he said he didn't understand until he started making his way up through the organization the value of the work that he did. He wasn't seeing students, he wasn't really seeing the end product. He was coming in, it was very transactional. And as he's made his way up through, he's understood what his values are, why he matters in our institution, and it's really something that we take great pride in when we hire someone, to have them understand that culture of care that we really stand behind. So that's really important as you're creating your teams, that you're looking for those folks or instilling in those folks that sense of pride in what we do. So our mission matters. It's not just for our students, it's not just for administrators, it's for everybody in our organization.
I'm going to take that a step further. We have actually been very intentional in working even with our entry-level staff, a custodian 1, in trying to instill upon them what their role is. When we say, well, what is it that you do here? We're really not looking for them to say, I clean the bathroom and I vacuum the floors and I wash the windows. We're looking for them to say, I am actively a part of the recruitment and retention of our students, and that's what my most important role is here. So them to do their job right means that they are actually a part of that process. We want them to feel that they are empowered, and people have really latched onto that idea. So let's move on here. So we talked a little bit about March Madness. It's my favorite time of the year. Jenny, is it your favorite?
Sometimes.
Liar. Okay, so with March Madness, there's some things that we've got to talk about here. As you're trying to get into the dance is trying to get in that field of 64. Everybody wants to be in that field, which now they've expanded, and but it's something where it's an elite group that you get into. Well, we're going to talk about how that relates to housing in just a moment. The games are played at the highest level, so these are the teams that have earned the right to be playing in the postseason biggest tournament out there. So we have those sort of things here in our housing operations too. Everyone wants to be the Cinderella team, so you may not have the biggest credentials, you may not be from the biggest vendor or the biggest contractor or whatnot, but everybody wants a shot here, so we'll talk about that one. There will be some showstoppers, some diaper dandies. So diaper dandies, all right, so that's a coined term from ESPN here for some of the younger players that really step up and are starting to play like they belong, and they're playing with the elite out there. And so we believe that there are some diaper dandies out there in housing too. There will also be some buzzer beaters, and that's part of the fun of March Madness. It's some of the craziness of housing, and we'll talk about that. So we don't always agree with the calls. There's officials out there for a reason, and sometimes they get the call right on, sometimes they're way off, and that happens in housing too. So let's jump in here.
All right. Well, I'm watching Twitter, and I just got called out by Sarah Gustinelli for not loving March Madness. But I appreciate those folks that do, and I'll watch it when I'm in Vegas is the best part, and then you can do some strategic betting. But anyway, so everyone starts to get into the dance. You know, the biggest thing is that you want to make sure, Brad, if you want to go ahead and pull everything up, I think people can read through this. You know, we're looking at folks to bid for some of the projects that we're working on, and you want to make sure that you're looking at all of your options. Everybody wants to be part of your facility management. Everybody wants to have a part of your pie, and that's really hard because you might have a lot of options, but you might not have a lot of options. The biggest thing is that you want to have the best, but the best means building partnerships. You might fall in love, even though the bottom one says don't fall in love with your vendors. You might, but that's because they've actually proven themselves to do really quality work for you. And you might have actually had a falling out, if you will, with some other contractors that haven't pulled their weight. So it's really about making sure that you are getting the best value for your money, you're getting the best as far as a trusting relationship is concerned, and you want to make sure that you are bidding people against each other to see really what you can offer to make your facilities the best you can.
I'll add to that too, in that we've got a lot of things that every campus buys a lot of. So mattresses would be one. We're always buying carpet. We're buying different pieces that go into our halls. Well, I will tell you that not all mattresses are created equal, and I think anybody who's been in the procurement side of this will agree with that. Even all of us who have slept on all the different mattresses that are out there, there are some that just don't provide the level of support that we want to have out there. So you've got to be careful that it's not just a, well, let's just get the lowest bid. Well, sometimes you get what you pay for there.
I think things to really keep in mind as well is as you're going to local and regional and national conferences, these are the times to really make these relationships with your vendors. They're there for a reason. And I don't know, as I realized as an entry-level professional, the purpose or the intent of why we had those large exhibition halls full of vendors. You know, it felt like a time that I could just get a cup of coffee and catch up with some friends. But as I've made my way into the housing facility side of things in some ways, it's really changed my view on how to create those partnerships. So I encourage you, even at entry levels, to get involved and start making those relationships now, because you don't know where you'll be 5-10 years down the road, and you might want those relationships in the future.
So games are played at the highest level. Well, the stakes are pretty high for a lot of the people who are wanting to do work on our campuses, be it a contractor or a vendor. These people are vying for something that may be a 1-year, a 5-year, a 10-year contract. They want the opportunity to showcase what they can do. You need to get the right person on your campus, and if that company has the ability, the horsepower, if you will, to get the job done, then I'm all for it. There's sometimes a reluctance to try a new one when you've got somebody who's been working pretty well. Sometimes trying another vendor makes your old vendor work a little bit harder, and so it's really important that we get the right people out there. Talk to your peers. There are a lot of directors in this region that would love to share their thoughts and say, oh, I don't know that I'd go down that path. They're under new ownership, there's an issue, or they may say, I've got a wonderful relationship and I would recommend them to the nth degree. So talk to your fellow institutions, check their references. You can't do enough work to make sure you get the right person on your campus.
Absolutely. You know, there are university constraints, though, when it comes to doing any kind of contracting. You might have some requirements. You might have a directive coming from the top down, from the Board of Trustees, from the friend down the road that gives a lot of money. So you want to make sure that you understand, first of all, what those constraints are, and understand that sometimes you might not be able to get the top-ranked vendor that you want to work with, but there are some really great mid-level vendors and contractors that will do stellar work for you. And really, it's about creating that relationship and communicating with them as you work through your project to make sure you're getting exactly what you need, keeping in mind what your mission is, your focus, and what you need from them. And I don't think it's never a bad idea to give someone a new opportunity, as long as you have the path and direction in mind you need to go.
So talking about those showstoppers, those diaper dandies, this is one where, especially as we get into renovation construction, you know, you get somebody who does a great job. It's really encouraging and enticing for you to say, I want to give that same company all my work. Well, that's got some downfalls, some pitfalls, and it's something where occasionally you're going to have some jobs that you can say, I feel like this one's one that another person would be a good choice to try and bring in here and see if they can get the job done, because we can find another partner. Because sometimes you need more than one partner to try and get the work done. And so finding somebody that might be a diaper dandy, so that's the person that maybe doesn't have all the credentials that you typically like, but you feel good about them after vetting them against other people, give them a shot.
You know, we also have a vendor that we're looking at working with that Brad has had experience with the person in the past, and he's moved to a different company. And they're a pretty new company, and yet because of that relationship that Brad has created, he trusts taking a little bit of a risk with this new company. And so we're vetting them and trying that out. And so, again, I can't emphasize more the importance of creating that relationship.
Absolutely. And sometimes there are certain companies that you're really reliant upon their service. So it's not just give me the equipment. The service for a laundry company is absolutely critical. I need to make sure that they're going to take care of me every day without fail. If I don't hear about what's going on, that's a great contract. And so we've got a couple of those that are outstanding partners that we want to continue to cultivate those relationships. So this next one here, we're talking about some buzzer beaters. Sometimes we get behind the 8 ball here, and sometimes we get behind on schedule. And when that occurs, you've got to be on top of them. You've got to make sure that you know exactly what your time frames are. If they're falling behind, you've got to have somebody at the table that is absolutely calling them on it. And actually I've got a couple others here too, but you'll see the third bullet down here, we had painters 2 years running here that absolutely killed a project. They were doing poor work, and it was not up to the standard that we wanted to see. We were sending them back, and unfortunately ultimately had to release 2 different painting companies because they sent their C team or their D team instead of giving us the A squad that we were looking for. So you've got to make sure that you're on top of that. As I said there, opening day doesn't move. You're going to have to be ready, and we've got to make sure that we're ready to go. Part of this, too, is communicating with your internal staff, too. We like to under-promise and over-deliver. If we think that we can get people back into their residence hall on August 1st, I'm going to tell them it's still August 10th before staff can even get in and start doing their work. If they get in early, everybody's happy. I'll also talk just briefly too, performance incentives and liquidated damages. Oop, that went a little far. With our performance incentives, those are options too that you can write into contracts here for getting work done early. Those are wonderful incentives. Another incentive coming at it from the opposite direction is a liquidated damage. So you could say, if this is not done, we've had some that were upwards of $40,000 a day in penalties. That's a lot of motivation for people to get their work done.
So we don't always agree with the calls, if you will. Again, this is similar to what I was talking about before. There are some university pressures, and I say that both positively and sometimes in regards to challenges that we need to abide by. So again, some of those budget ramifications, going with a low bid versus an RFP, or who you want versus where we can come in at. Again, you sometimes don't get what you pay for, so you need to watch that. As Brad said, the painters, we thought we were getting the A team, we get the C team, and why was that? And we don't know. Sometimes you have to backtrack and assess what happened and how you want to move forward. I know this is a conversation that Brad has often when he's talking about procurement, is do we we want to buy the $100 furniture that's going to last us a year versus the $500 furniture that's going to last us 5 to 10 years? You know, do we put the money out in the front versus the back? And so that's something that he, I know, is constantly defending as we're looking at budget numbers and crunches and cuts, as you probably, many of you are as well. There are presidential pet projects. I know everybody's aware of what that means. Sometimes we have the ability to change those and sometimes we don't. And so we just need to make sure that we're able to actively engage with the projects that are on our docket, whether they're ours or they're someone else's. Ultimately, you need to keep, again, that mission in mind, that student focus in mind. Why are we doing what we do? And you need to be able to explain that to your team as well, because we want everyone to understand the buy-in and why that's happening.
In looking at the poll that came in earlier here about how many of you have an in-house physical plant or facility side, it looks like about 70% of you do. We're in a little different situation here at UNC where we have a campus entity that takes care of this, and so we work very closely with them. However, they oftentimes, they would love to just make the call on everything. And unfortunately, they don't make the kind of calls that we want in many cases. So those are pieces where we have made it very clear that we're going to be close partners and working together and making any difficult decisions. There are certain things that, you know, we're okay in releasing to them, but there are certain things that have a student or staff or guest impact that we're very, very particular about making sure that we're at the table for making those decisions. All right, so let's talk about the language. So this is one that I'm anxious to see how you all do here, but these are some phrases, words, mostly acronyms here that are floating around from the facility side. We want you to take a look at all these and see if you can identify each one correctly. We're going to show you later in our presentation exactly what each of these mean in case you got one of them wrong. So most of these are pretty simple, but there are many more that we get to deal with as well. Let's jump to the next.
So one thing that this might be giving an answer from the previous slide, but our LEED certification, obviously this is something that is very prevalent as we are looking at construction projects and renovation projects, the leadership in energy and environmental design. We're really looking to push those standards and figure out how we can make our buildings and our facilities more sustainable. So we're looking at 6 categories that you can see up here on the screen, and there are 4 levels of certification. Our LEED certified, silver, gold, and platinum. We actually built just a handful of years ago 2 facilities that would be considered LEED Gold certified. However, unfortunately, at the time, that wasn't a value by some of our stakeholders, and so we didn't file our paperwork, and so we don't, unfortunately, have those standards to tout. We could go back and get them if we really wanted to, but we encourage you to really make that a priority as you're moving forward, because it is something that not only our our administrators are looking for, but our students are looking for as they're touring campuses.
So moving on with some additional language acronyms here. These are things that we see quite often, and these are pieces that I wish, as I was coming up as a young person, that I would have known a little bit more about some of these. As I sat in meetings and I heard them and I said, what the heck did he mean? And occasionally I would write them down and pull people aside later. And so we thought we'd run through a few of these, just make sure that everybody's on the same page here. So PPE, what does that mean, Jenny?
I didn't know this, but it's personal protective equipment.
And we use that an awful lot. We are right in lockstep with our environmental health and safety department in working on things that we get for typical everyday tasks to things that, you know, for ear protection and such, even to the point of bloodborne pathogens and how we handle some of those. So we'll fly through these pretty quickly here. So PM could mean project manager. In this particular one, we were talking about preventative maintenance, making sure that we are on top of all of those things. Switchgear, we're talking about electrical switchgear here, running to a sub panel, down to a breaker box, making sure that everybody knows where you're going to find those different things and being comfortable in trying to identify some of those things on drawings and being able to say, I don't like this sitting out in the front yard of my building here, and let's find another location for this. HTHW is our high temp hot water. That's one that is very common on our campus, and some of your campuses are probably fed with steam heat or could be high temp hot water like ours. Chilled water lines, how we're using our different chillers on campus. There's a lot to be learned there as well. 2-pipe versus 4-pipe systems here. This is one that we are fortunate enough to have a couple buildings that are on the 4-pipe system here, but this is means that we have the ability to have heat or AC at any time of the year, and unfortunately we can't do that in a number of our older buildings. Deferred maintenance, this is one that is obviously a big one for a lot of our institutions, and are we taking care of some of those maintenance issues that really ought to be addressed in a timely fashion. Value engineering, exactly how much can we get into a project? Oftentimes we're sitting there saying there's more project than there is money, and so what are we going to cut out of that project? And that's a difficult process. Lead time, this is one that bites us a lot. We always have to be looking down the road here, and are we planning far enough ahead for summer maintenance items? Can we have everything here by May 10th so that we're ready to go as soon as the hall's empty and we're able to start on any construction projects, in-house or external?
All right, so Ben's going to throw up another poll. I want to know how many of these you got right. Please be truthful. As Brad said, there are a lot of opportunities that you have, especially new professionals that are listening, to sit in meetings and ask these questions. If you don't know what they are, please learn them. Please share with your staff, because you want to be able to feel like you're knowledgeable when you're sitting in meetings, especially when you're looking at our facility partners. So just to recap, OSHA, Occupational Health, Safety and Health Administration, APPA, Association of Physical Plant Administrators, VoIP, our Voice over Internet Protocol, MSDS, Material Safety Data Sheet. Just so you guys know, this actually changed within the last year. The material has been dropped, so now the new acronym is SDS, Safety Data Sheet. HVAC, Heating, Ventilation, and Air Conditioning, T and M, Time and Materials, and LEED, as we talked about before, is our Energy and Environmental Design.
So real quickly here, when we talk deferred maintenance, there's a lot of different pieces that spin out of this. So from a deferred maintenance standpoint, safety rises to the top for us. We try very much to make sure we're addressing those things. Obviously, budget comes into this. What's code compliant? We're also looking at things from an aesthetic standpoint. And, is it something where we can live with it for another year? A roof that's not leaking, yeah, we probably can. If it's something out, a main entry point here that really needs paint or carpet, something that's worn or torn, we're probably going to address that from an aesthetic standpoint. Sustainability, so we want to make sure that we're doing things that are wise in our practices as well. Sometimes it's the campus politics that we talked about earlier there, and then lastly talking about the longevity of some of these types of things. Some projects need to move along a little bit faster than others.
Here's just a quick resource reference for you all as you're looking at facilities management. Please check out the AIMHO website. The core competencies are very inclusive of what we're looking for to pay attention to. So don't forget that we have a lot, not only resources probably within your own universities, but the region, I keep putting my paperwork over the speaker. The region are obviously national, international partnership associations, as well as, again, as Brad said, some of our institutional partners are really great resources as you're moving into a facilities project.
Next slide.
This is you, Brad. No, this is me. Just kidding. So when tips for working with facilities, as you're creating partnerships, you need to remember, again, they might not view things the way that you do. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're not correct. It just means that they think about things differently. So facilities folks tend to be very linear thinkers. They want to know what comes first, second, third, fourth, and so on to the end product. They're results oriented. What do we need to do? Who do we need to involve? How do we need to do this? What is the budget cost for this to get to where we need to go? There's not a lot of fluff with facilities folks, and we saw there's about 50% of us sitting in the room that are more on the res ed and the res life side of things, and so you know that we're mostly about getting to know folks and fluffy team builders. Whether you love them or hate them, they're part of our world. That's not the part of facilities world. So just making sure that you understand that. So relationship building isn't necessarily about getting them to do the human knot project. Getting to know them really means what are the values that they have and what are the values that we have, and how do we make those congruent. They are all professionals. They're just a different type. So I know that can be frustrating sometimes because you want them to think like we do. How I view this a little bit is sometimes in student affairs, our partnership or some of our struggles with our partnership with academic folks, we're the ones that are bridging that gap oftentimes. And that's the same thing with facilities. How do you do that, and how do you understand their world?
Hey, while we're looking at the next screen here in just a moment, I did look back at the poll here for how many acronyms we got correct, and my goodness, you people are honest. We love that. So, but we have about 20% of you that got 1 to 2 correct, 30% 3, 4, 30% 5, 6, and then 20% of you got all of them correct. So, well done.
So facility staff members can also be administratively sound. These are kind of extreme. So they can be administratively sound or very paper phobic. We want to document for a lot of reasons. Sometimes they don't necessarily want that. So you need to understand that they can be both ends of the spectrum or somewhere in the middle on all of these. Detail-oriented and big picture focused. You can infer what that means. And that I'll take care of it, don't worry, or this place is falling apart. This is where we want to talk about figuring out how to create an environment where everyone wants to be a part of it. And so you can trust those folks that say, yep, I'll take care of it. They understand the mission. They understand the values. They understand where we're going. And once you give them a task or ask them to do something that they are on it and they're going to make it happen. There are some staff members that work in facilities or for us that just don't see the value of making things better. Why should I pick up that piece of trash in front of me? There's a bunch of trash, on the other side of the building where the wind has blown it. So why does this one piece of trash matter? And it really does. And so making sure that, again, you're minimizing that spectrum. If it's someone you can work with and explain the value and really try to come to the middle ground, we really encourage you to do that. If it's an outside vendor that really doesn't see the value in what you're doing or the place that you're working, then maybe you want to look at a different vendor.
All right. Let's look at some of the keys for working with facility staff. We have found that the more time that we give these folks, the better performance we get from them.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm messing Brad up.
No, we're good. So for us, we've spent some time walking facilities with different facilities individuals, different foremen. If they have an issue, we're willing to get out of the chair and let's go meet with them. Let's talk through those things. They oftentimes bring great ideas to us just because we spend the time with them. So that's also part of the developing of those relationships that we were talking about. Create a shadowing program. For newer folks who are starting into this, it's really helpful to spend a portion of a day doing some work alongside these people. Seeing and hearing, well, what are some of your frustrations? What are some of the things that students do that drive you crazy? What are some of the things that our staff do that drive you crazy? Anything like that to help build those relationships, really, really important. Follow the reporting processes. This is a really big one on our campus. We've got too many people who want to just grab the guy in the hallway and say, hey, can you come fix this? And we really are encouraging all staff and students, let's follow the work order system. If there's something where we need to expedite things, we have a process in place to help things get done expeditiously too, but let's follow the process. We've oftentimes also had people say, hey, we've got this issue, and especially on callbacks, we have now said we will not call somebody out until we've had a professional staff member get out and look at it. So in this case, in most cases, it's going to be a hall director. Sometimes our university police go with them, and they'll say, you know what, this is an issue, but it can wait until morning. Or it's one that we're going to place the call here right as the shift ends here, so we get somebody new instead of bringing somebody back. But making sure that we truly have an issue before we call somebody out. Dealing with large projects or major issues, this is one we've got to stay on top of it. So if you've got an opportunity to sit at the table and be a decision maker, have somebody there. If you don't sit there, you have no room to whine about something or complain that something didn't get done if you're not able to help weigh in on some of those initial decisions.
Here are just a few questions that you might want to jot down or reference back on once this is posted. As you're going into a facilities project, making sure that you understand what, again, is the end goal, what's the issue, what's been caused by it, how do we address it, can we do anything to prevent what's happening in the future, who are the people that need to be around the table in order to address the issue. So again, just some questions to pause as you're moving into anything in the future to kind of come back to and make sure that you have all of your bases covered.
All right, so we also want to give you a few tips for keeping staff motivated. We don't have enough social events that we can include them a lot, but where we can, we try to do some things to say, hey, come join us for our lunch, come join us for this activity. You're welcome to join us for different things, and people respond very well with that. A big one for us is to say, you're an expert. I don't know everything about HVAC here, but please help me understand how I can fix this. Respecting their experience goes a long, long ways. Trying to be down to earth with these folks, it's something where they don't want to be talked down to. They just want to be a colleague and a partner. And when you do that, things have typically gone very well for us on this campus. We've tried to provide the tools. If there's a way that we can give them a little something more to help them do their job, especially when it's a job that's going to help us. So sometimes there's other ways that we can give them some attaboys that are actually helping us as well. And then recognizing positive feedback, we try to go all out in calling out those good things that do occur and trying to do something in general for everybody annually as well, because we know that there's a lot of great thoughts and ways that people have saved us money and saved us time, saved on callbacks that we don't even have any idea that they've done it. But we try to just do some general attaboys for the entire group.
So as you're going into training, specifically if you have an in-house custodial or facilities staff, making sure that you help them understand some of the different things that are happening within your university setting. So understanding the culture of your Division of Student Affairs, if you have one, or your counter equivalent. What is the institutional culture? What are their expectations as staff members to be part of those two families? And that's kind of how we view it here. And what is their role in student retention, recruitment, student engagement, all of those things. Obviously, policies are huge. That kind of goes without saying. Customer service, I think, again, bringing some of the day-to-day work a little bit broader, looking at that 3,000-foot view of what is the purpose. Customer service is our number one value. How are we giving our students what they need and want to feel like this is a home? Resident education strategies, what we want them to be doing when they're talking to students. We obviously want our custodial staff, I know this is a pretty easy in the bag example, but those custodial staff that have common bathrooms, are they seeing any recurring issues that they need to report that might be a student concern that the hall director or the hall staff need to follow up on? Reporting process, again, that's every kind of reporting process that you want them to be involved in. Prioritization philosophy, that's coming from you. Where are we putting our values, and how do we make sure that those values are being lived every day? Conduct and judicial processes, just generally, I think it's good for them to know, as well as sexual harassment Title IX policies, not only how maybe it might be handled at the student level if they're observing anything, but also within the group. And again, going back to creating buy-in, I think that this is something to take the time in your training sessions to really get them to understand how are they a member of this team and how are they valued.
Okay, I know our time is drawing near here, so here's a little bit of contact information if anybody wants to follow up on any of the matters that we've hit today. There are so many that we really did not try to delve into, and certainly when you get into construction and renovation, that's a whole other language in and of itself. When you get into procurement, some of those types of pieces are just enormous subjects too. But they're important, and so hopefully down the road here we'll be able to chime back in with another session or two and be able to partner with you again. We do appreciate everybody chiming in on the polls. That was fun to see exactly who we had here today, and we hope that this has been a little bit helpful to you. We'd love to open up for any questions.
Great. Thank you, Brad and Jenny. If you have any questions there at your institutions, please feel free now to type them into the chat box there. While that's happening, I'll put in a quick little plug for our webinar in March. We are looking at budgeting in a crunch. I don't know how many of your institutions are in a crunch or have been these last several years, but we feel like that will be a valuable topic for a lot of different institutions. Also, if your institution hasn't had an opportunity yet to type in what school you're with and how many people are in the room with you, now would be a great time to do that. And we'll just look for some questions to come up here.
I'm sure we were just so thorough that there could be no questions. So
I think that's got to be it.
Uh-huh.
Although Dave Wilcox has been giving you some trash talk here, Brad. I don't know if you've seen those coming up.
Actually, let me see if I can stretch this down here.
And Chris Ralphs is giving a shout out to Dave. So
to Dave, yes. Hey, Dave.
Yes. I feel it feels a little bit like Cyrano de Bergerac here, just communicating between the two of them.
Can you expand that box a little bit?
Yeah, there are a couple of questions here now. One from Carolyn. She asks, at UNC, how many square footage within your portfolio and how many maintenance mechanics?
We have square footage is almost 1.3 million, and our maintenance mechanics are all through our facility services. And our facilities management here has, oh goodness, I want to say a team of about 8 for the entire campus. But we don't have anybody who is specifically dedicated to our housing, but we've got some that are certainly more proficient with the different systems in each of the halls. If there's something more specific that I can get into, shoot another question.
And then Dave Wilcox did come through with a question for us. How are you using technology with your facility staff?
Yeah, not a lot at this point, at least specifically our internal staff. I've been in a couple other institutions where they're looking at using those iPads with the work order systems and whatnot. We haven't moved in that direction. We find that our internal staff are shy in person, let alone with some of the new ways of communicating and getting some of those instructions. And so we haven't pulled the trigger on that, but it's something that we're certainly looking at doing.
We haven't pulled the trigger widely. We are piloting it with our utility crew, the general laborers that we were talking about. They are carrying iPads and such that we're able to give instruction, take photographs of some of the things that they may deal with. But they have a little bit more of the mobile office because they are out in a truck. Sometimes they're off-site, sometimes they're shopping, and we're able to send them notes of tasks or shopping items that we may need from them. So that's been a beneficial start. We're not rolling that out quite as widely as we thought we might be by now.
And Carolyn also asks, what is the total UNC housing deferred maintenance backlog value or cost?
Yeah, our deferred maintenance was about 67 million. So as of that was about middle of last year. So there hasn't been a new update that we've put out here. So it's fairly substantial.
Ben, we're having a hard time seeing all these, so if you can keep reading, that's really helpful.
You bet.
Goodness.
Well, I'm sure I see that Brad and Jenny have provided their contact information there for you. If you have questions that you'd like to ask them later, I am certain they would be willing to respond to you. Thank you, Brad, and thank you, Jenny, for stepping in so quickly. Oh, Carolyn has a clarification. Does housing have internal maintenance mechanics?
We do not. We are using the university provided mechanics. So they are university employees, you know, fully bonded, but they are not our own. We do not give them work direction.
Thank you, she says.
You're welcome. I'm sorry. I wish we could read all of these.
Great. Well, this webinar will be available online. A link to it will be posted on the AIMHO 365 committee page at the AIMHO website. And they run through YouTube. So if you go to YouTube and search AIMHO webinars, I'm pretty sure it will come up. We'll try to get that up as soon as we can. Thank you all for your participation. Thank you again, Brad and Jenny, for being so gracious and sharing your knowledge with us. And we look forward to hearing from everybody next month at our budgeting webinar. Have a great day.
Thank you very much.